Let me guess, you've heard all the hook advice already. Be relatable, be specific, make it attention grabbing, say something shocking, create a curiosity gap. Cool, great. But here's the problem, right? None of that actually teaches you how to write a good hook. It's like someone telling you just cook a really good meal, but never actually giving you the recipe or the ingredients. So you sit there staring at a blank screen thinking, okay, but how do I make this attention grabbing? Or what does relatable even look like in words? And that's why most hooks actually end up being very skippable. So in this video, I'm not going to just tell you what a good hook needs, I'm going to show you how to actually write one. So grab your pen and paper and let's get into it. Okay, so the first rule of an unskippable hook is that it needs to be clear and relevant. And this means that it needs to make two things clear right away: who this post is for and what this post is about. Now, there are two ways that you can make the who clear. The first is the explicit method. So, this is where you directly call out your audience in the hook by using words that they identify with. This could be demographic factors like age, gender, location, or job. For example, women in their 20s, residents of Vancouver, doctors, content creators, etc. The second is through personal factors, so things like their personality, values, or identity. For example, introverts, minimalists, Christian moms, petite girlies. And the third is through situational factors, that is, what they're going through or the stage of life that they're in. For example, 2026 brides, parents of teens, first time homeowners, or women with PCOS. When you name the person clearly, the right people immediately lean in, and everyone else knows that it's not for them. The second way you can make the who clear is by the implicit method. So here, instead of naming the person, you describe a situation only they experience. For example, if you avoid social gatherings because small talk makes you nervous. Notice how you never said introvert or social anxiety, but the right person still knows instantly. When you're hyper specific about something only they relate to, you automatically filter out everyone else that it doesn't apply to. Now that we've covered the who, let's get into how you can clearly communicate what the video is about. The first way is by calling out an observable pain point. Observable means if I were a ghost in the room, could I watch this happen? Observable pain points are things that someone can physically watch or hear someone do, and everyone should picture the same thing when they read your hook. Take a look at this hook for a second. You lack confidence in social settings. That's not specific because confidence can mean different things to different people. Like, is this about work? Is this about social anxiety? Is this about body image? The hook doesn't really tell us, and so it doesn't land. Now, compare that to you rehearse what to say, then stay quiet anyway. Notice how we all picture the same exact moment, and that's what specificity does. Some other vague hooks that I see all the time are ones like, you're feeling overwhelmed as a mom of three, you're struggling with anxiety, you're feeling lonely as an adult. The mistake here is calling out emotions instead of experiences. Instead of naming the feeling, your hook should describe how that feeling shows up in their daily life. Like, what does the overwhelm actually look like in their day to day? What does the anxiety do to them? How does loneliness look like on a random Tuesday? So, here's how you can make these hooks better. You're taking longer showers because that's the only time that you have for yourself. For the next one, you lie awake for hours replaying a conversation. And the third one, you have no one to hang out with at the mall. This is why observable pain points work so well, because they mirror your audience's lived experiences. And when people recognize their own behavior, you instantly have their attention. The second way to communicate what the video is about is to promise a measurable outcome in your hook. The mistake most people make is writing desire based hooks like this. They say stuff like how to become more confident, how to make more money, how to improve your mindset. Those sound nice, but they're not specific because confidence, money, and mindset mean different things to different people. Instead, strong hooks promise measurable outcomes. That means you describe the result the way that they'll experience it in real life, or you give them a clear benchmark that they can track. So instead of this, how to become more confident, you can say how to say no without feeling guilty or people pleasing. And instead of how to make more money, you can say how to make your first 5K in 3 months selling digital products. And instead of how to improve your mindset, you can say how to stop overthinking every decision. Again, we can picture it, we can feel it, and we can measure it. And remember, don't promise vague outcomes, promise clear, measurable outcomes. The third way to make it instantly clear what your video is about is by using recognizable keywords. This is where you include words that are familiar to your audience in the hook, like industry keywords, shared interests, places, or brands. For example, a hook using niche keywords might sound like, "This is the Lightroom preset I use to give my wedding photos a soft film style 90s look." A wedding photographer instantly knows this video is for them because of words like Lightroom preset and wedding photos. No extra explanation needed. If your audience is location based, local references work incredibly well too. For example, laptop friendly cafes in NYC. You can also reference popular brands or places that they already interact with, like My Amazon Finds for small spaces, or even trends, hobbies, or interests they're into, using keywords like book talk, it girl, soft life, etc. All of these work because recognizable words grab attention fast. When the brain recognizes something familiar, it pauses, and that pause is what makes your content harder to skip. Okay, the second rule of a good hook is that it needs to be attention grabbing. And one of the fastest ways to do this is through a pattern interrupt, basically saying something that your audience doesn't expect. And there are a couple of ways that you can do this. The first is the opposite statement method. This is where you take a commonly held belief that your audience has and you flip it by stating the opposite. So, step one, you're going to write down the common belief. For example, confidence is necessary to speak up. And step two, you're going to flip it by just stating the opposite. For example, confidence isn't necessary to speak up. It immediately grabs attention because it contradicts what your audience already thought they knew. The second is the backfiring action method. This is where you point out that their current actions are actually creating the opposite result of what they expect. And here's how to do it. Step one, you're going to write down what is their desired outcome. For example, lose weight. Step two, write down the action that they think they need to achieve the goal but actually don't. Example, skip breakfast. And step three, you're going to reverse it by telling them that the action doesn't actually cause the result that they expect. So your hook would look like, skipping breakfast is why you're struggling to lose weight. Other words that work here are words like is why. So, for example, gentle parenting your kids is why they don't listen. Or stop. For example, stop taking on more projects if you want that promotion. Don't. Don't mix soils if you want healthy tomato plants. Other words like won't, taking on more projects won't land you that promotion. The reason is because. The reason you're not making sales is because you're talking about what's included in your offer. And lastly, leads to instead of. For example, cutting carbs leads to weight gain instead of weight loss. The third is the expectation flip method. Here you start by agreeing with something that they believe and then contrast it with something unexpected. You can use contrasting words like but, however, yet, except, instead, until. Example, saving money is good, but it won't make you wealthy. Or you can use a short second phrase that contradicts the first. For example, people think you need to work harder to get a promotion, you don't. The key with all of these is surprise. You're leading them down a path they expect and then hitting them with a twist. And that twist is what helps them stop scrolling. Another powerful way to make your hook attention grabbing is by using an unanswered question. This is where you take a confusing or frustrating pattern that your audience keeps noticing and turn it into a question. For example, why do most SaaS founders fail in their first year? This question creates an open loop in the brain and they will stick around to hear the answer because their brain wants that closure. Another attention grabbing hook style is teasing the result. Here you tell them the action that you took and hint at the outcome without giving it away, usually by sharing how it made you feel. For example, I tried this productivity hack for a week and the results shocked me. You're not revealing the ending, but you're just creating curiosity. And the final way to grab attention is by removing objections. You promise a result that your audience wants while taking away the one thing that they think they need to get it. The curiosity comes from them wondering, how is this possible without what I thought was necessary? Here's how it works. First, you're going to write down the desired outcome. For example, land 4-figure brand deals as an influencer. And second, you're going to identify the top objection. That is what they think they need to have to achieve the desired outcome. For example, I need a large following. And finally, frame your hook by removing the objection. So you can use words like without, So, example, how to land four-figure brand deals as an influencer without a large following, or with just how to make 8K in digital product sales with just 1,000 followers, or in X time, how I plan a week of content in 15 minutes. Okay, the third rule of a good hook is that it needs to be credible. A good hook needs to make your audience trust you, and there are a few ways that you can do that. The first way is to show that you've done the work for them. You're saving them time, effort, or money by testing, researching, and experimenting and sharing your results. For example, I read 100 marketing books and this is the biggest mistake costing you sales. Or simple experiments like, I tried Chloe Ting's ab workout for 30 days and this is what happened. Or I spent $1,000+ on cafes in New York, and these are the only ones worth visiting. The second way is to share your personal wins. This shows that you've been where your audience is and successfully overcome the problem, which qualifies you to speak on it. You can do this by keeping it personal by using words like I or my and tying it to a specific pain point or a desire. You can even use phrases like, as someone who blank, for example, as someone who suffers from PCOS, these are the only hair care products I use. Or coming from someone who blank, for example, this is the only protein powder I swear by, coming from someone who's lost 5 pounds in 3 months. The third way you can build credibility is by using professional titles. For example, as a dermatologist, this is the biggest skincare mistake I see people making that causes acne to flare up. Or, I'm a hiring manager for Google and here's what most tech resumes get wrong. The fourth and final way is by borrowing credibility from research, case studies, or well known figures to back up your claims. For example, this is how Warren Buffett built a 100 billion net worth without frequent trading. Or, these are the top 5 resume mistakes according to Harvard. And finally, the fourth rule of a good hook is to front load the value. This is where you get to the main point without rambling. You lead with what's most interesting and relevant to your audience and then give context later. So skip the unnecessary greetings like, hey guys, and other backstories. Here's an example of a weak hook. So I was walking in the park today and thinking, why is it so hard for Gen Z to relate to boomers? The better version would be, why is it so hard for Gen Z to relate to boomers? When you lead with the main idea, you earn their attention first, and then you can add the context later. And if you watched this far, YouTube thinks that you would like this video next.